Always keep your hands where they can see them. Don't move too quickly. Take your hood when the sun goes down. My parents raised me and my siblings in an armor of advice. An ocean of alarm bells so someone wouldn't steal the breath from our lungs. So they wouldn't make a memory out of our skin. And so we could just be kids, not casket or concrete. And it wasn't because they thought we were better than anyone else. It was simply because they wanted to keep us alive. And I refuse to accept that we can't build this world into something new. Into a place where every single one of us can breathe.
Minorities have been influencing culture and fashion for a long time, like Eazy-E in the 1980s, or Dapper Dan, the man who found a way to incorporate his culture into non-accepting brands, like Louis Vuitton, Fendi, and Gucci. We interviewed Mark Sabb, a creative talent and founder of Felt Zine, Jessica Egbu, a social media influencer and manager. Jessica also owns a fashion blog titled The Oxfordist. Last but not least, we interviewed Erica Solis, a daytime photo producer and stylist. She also owns an online store called Routine Vintage. We asked them to discuss why minorities aren't equally represented in fashion. This is Behind the Runway.
I used to take the bus and the train all the time to go out to Harlem just to kind of see how people out there were dressing, especially when they would have summertime basketball games for people to come out and be super fresh and just style on everybody. The game would be one thing, but I would be less interested in the game and be more interested in what people were wearing who were coming to the games.
Do you ever feel targeted in certain places based on what you wear?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm a 5'11", dark-skinned woman who has hip glasses on. I feel like people, whenever they look at me, especially if I'm, commuting to work on the bus or the train, everyone's trying to visually analyze, and you can tell by their facial expressions, especially people who aren't of color. They're trying to figure me out before they know how to approach me.
I think that when we continue to be ourselves, we stand out regardless, because a lot of the fashion industry, percentage-wise, for models, for example, are 80% to higher, maybe 90% white.
I actually had an experience where I was shopping in Japan. Basically, I went to a store, I saw something I liked, I wanted to buy it, and I kind of told the person, yeah, I want to buy this, but don't show me, I don't want this one because it's kind of scratched up. Can you kind of pull out another one for me that's newer? And they really kind of ignored me the whole time until someone who I was with could also speak the same language as them. That experience, part of it is that this person's never seen someone like me.
I'm a very avid attender of Fashion Week during the fall for spring collections, and I think that Black people don't get the recognition when it comes to style and fashion as most regular, degular, schmegular bloggers do. And so I think the stigma's there, or the stereotypes there, is that we have to push and push and push and pull and push and persuade society and whatever fashion heads there are that we are also, important, and we understand fashion, and we're also just fans of fashion in general.
I'm Latina, or Latinx, as I like to be called. As a person of color, if you don't see yourself represented in those higher fashion circles, it's hard to really aspire to be a part of it too.
Ever wanted the perfect life? Well, too bad! You don't, but the number one toy in America does. Who is it, you ask? Well, it's Oliver, of course. only Oliver. You can get Oliver with the very low price of only $550. You can get accessories of sunglasses, money, and a suitcase for $200. You might as well get him with the MyPhone X for $300 and get him those SkyPods for $200. Get Oliver the Les Lamborghini for $700 and get him the Dream Life Mansion for only $2,000. And if you pay $100 more, you can get the remote control Les Lamborghini. If you call this number now, you could get 1% off. That's a steal. Look at that mansion. How can you refuse to buy all of this? If you were to buy all this right now, it would only cost $3,950. So buy now, because your life will not get any better.
Wow! Mom, can I have this toy?
So, despite misconceptions, anybody really can be a target from bullying. 20% of youth at any given time experience mental illness, so that means that 1 in 5 people that you're surrounded with at any given time statistically is experiencing a mental illness, and upwards of half of people at any point in their life will experience mental illness.
My little cousin, she's 13 years old, and every time I go over to her house, she always tells me about how she's been bullied, like, really badly. The kids, they make fun of her skin color. You know, they say, like, horrible things about her, and it just affects her really badly.
Bullying does affect communities and society. Like, let's say someone gets bullied because of their race, they'll start to think that they're bad because of their race, or like something's wrong with them because of their race.
No child should grow up with low self-confidence, but that's what was happening to a little girl from South LA, all because she was bullied about the color of her skin.
You have an adolescent of color who has experienced persistent discrimination throughout their lives, which is likely in this day and age. That can over time actually lead to things like depression, like stress, like anxiety. So unfortunately, the United States has a really dark history of mental health treatment, where particularly people of color were discriminated against and may be given inappropriate diagnoses. Historical experiences of certain communities being mistreated by the mental health care field, as well as enhanced stigma in certain communities that mental illness is particularly a sign of weakness or a sign that you're crazy. Both of these can enhance communities of color and youth of color being less likely to speak about mental illness and less likely to seek help for mental illness.
In today's society, men are designed to take it a different way. Like, if a man cries or a boy cries, he's supposed to suck it up. He's supposed to fight back. But if a girl does it, then they're like expected to cry or like to go to like someone. But if they don't, then it's, you know, it's out of the ordinary.
Another reason that I think it's hard for youth to talk about mental health problems is because we don't really learn about mental health problems in school the way we learn about math or vocabulary. So we don't grow up learning vocabulary for how to discuss feelings and how to discuss reaching out for mental health. So I think that if we increased more education about mental health in schools, it might become easier for youth to talk about mental illness.
In the world, not all of us could get along, but we can all respect.
I can't believe that the only field trip we get for the entire year is to some boring old museum.
At least we get a day off from schoolwork.
Hello, children. I am Tourbot number 0767-843-2, and I will be your tour guide for the day. Come along as we take a fun and educational glimpse into the past. Today, I would like to start our tour off with one of our newest editions, Isolated, a showcase of time-style history where races of people were separated from the rest of society. Here we have a depiction of the average Indian reservation. As settlers spread across the New World, they came into conflict with the native people, pushing them further and further west. Efforts to get rid of the natives culminated in the signing of the Indian Removal Act, requiring the relocation of American Indians to designated reservations. This diorama is centered around Japanese internment camps used during World War II. During the war, paranoia grew as the Japanese spread across the Pacific. Fear of being taken over by the hostile country caused many to fear and mistrust innocent Japanese Americans. This fear made FDR sign an executive order that forced thousands of Japanese Americans to move into internment camps. Finally, we have a recreation of government housing projects in the United States. During the 1950s and 60s, white Americans began to leave large cities to live in suburban areas. This left cities inhabited by impoverished groups of minorities who had to deal with crime and homelessness on their own. As city neighborhoods descended into slums, the US government decided to build housing projects that would house the masses of people living in poverty. While this plan seemed to work in theory, it only concentrated crime, drugs, and poverty into one place in execution. Black and Latino citizens now had to live in rundown, claustrophobic, and unsafe communities that were left to waste away in their own isolated part of the city for years on end. We hope you've enjoyed your visit to the Outlook City History Museum. Please come back next week when we unveil our newest exhibit, Cat Videos, A History.
I still can't believe it.
What, that we weren't allowed to go to the gift shop?
No, I can't believe people would do that to an entire race of people.
Oh yeah, it seems so messed up to do something like that to try and solve your problems. At least we don't do barbaric stuff like that now.
Hey, you're right, it's good to know society's learned from its mistakes.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best.
And the president wanting to throw illegal migrants out of the country.
They are being released by the tens of thousands.
They are not coming into the USA, and we will close the border permanently if need be.
They're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
It's far from the complete story. Next.
My name is Rosario. I am 65 years old and I am from El Salvador.
My name is Alexander Blanco. I'm 16 years old. I'm from Guatemala.
My name is Ramal Halabi. I'm 22 and I'm Lebanese.
I left my country because of poverty, violence in my country, and also government corruption.
Main reason was my mother. My mother came to the United States when she was 35. I was in Europe and in Spain, and I knew my mother was not doing that well, psychological. She was missing the family. So I decided to follow her. Being an immigrant is not an easy thing. You leave behind everything, your family, your customs, everything.
After I crossed the border, I was actually at New York City, detained. It was really isolating. No one that I knew, like my family. It was really sad.
Fellow SAG-AFTRA members and everyone at home, and everyone in airports that belong in my America.
Being here, I think it was a blessing because it was a way to have a better life.
I knew they came from a different country, but I didn't associate it with being an immigrant because at the time, and still now, immigration seemed as like a negative thing, but I never saw it that way. I mean, they came to America to build a better life, and then they gave me and my siblings a better life as well.
Immigration, I think, is a right. It's a right because people need to move to certain places and look for opportunities to escape poverty or violence in their home countries, and I think that's okay.
How did you say it?
Okay, cut.
I get on the ABX, and to get back home, I get on the 8 and get picked up from there.
My mom dropped me off, or I get on the 28 to school.
My name is Ariel Ward, and I'm a transportation planner and engineer at the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency. I think that current transportation is in a really interesting state, us being in San Francisco and being kind of in the hub of innovation culture. I like to say that I'm a mobility advocate. I want people, regardless of your race or gender or income, regardless of anything, I think that people should have the tools that they need to get around.
The worst thing I've seen on transportation is somebody getting something stolen or it's a fight.
There's a lot of violence sometimes and a lot of crazy people.
It's so important, and that's why I'm really invested in making sure that everyone can have equal access to a wide variety of transportation options.
What's always important for youth to have a voice and get involved with anything that affects them, and of course transportation is a big part of how our youth maneuver the city, how their families maneuver the city.
My name is Ollie Wolf, and I'm a Muni driver at Muni, San Francisco. I was born and raised in San Francisco. I grew up in Hunters Point. Growing up as a kid, I rode the buses, all the time. And I told myself if I could drive the buses in my community, in the city I was raised in, then that's okay.
My concern is about Muni and safety for elders and teens.
Making sure the buses run more often, making the buses bigger because a lot of buses are very crowded.
Adapt the SFMTA, so that means making the bus sexy or making biking more attractive.
I think that it's a really interesting place for us to be in transportation when we're thinking about all of these new solutions. People have more ways to get around than ever. One thing about that, though, is making sure that everyone has access.
Sound off, be heard.
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 So Oasis for Girls stands for a lot of different things, but we hold space for girls to live out their best life, whether it's through life skills, looking at their body, their rights. I believed that this would be a really great opportunity for the girls to learn more about food justice in our community and looking through art as social change.
I feel like food is very important for my community, especially because I believe that there's a lot of like Latin culture. We always have to like go out of our way to find like certain ingredients to make certain dishes that are important to us.
Sometimes I wonder if I'm gonna have something good to eat or anything that's gonna be good for my body.
We are a food justice coalition based in the Tenderloin, really building up resident engagement around food justice there by increasing access to fresh food. Food justice is a community's ability to access fresh food that is affordable and culturally relevant to their own communities. So really in the Tenderloin, that covers a vast variety of types of food.
Oasis for Girls is part of our Neighborhood Thought Partners group, as is the Healthy Corner Store Coalition. It made a lot of sense to bring the two groups together since they are located right near one another.
Part of the project is having it be a multi-generational effect where elders are working with youth and helping to exchange information ideas about how we need to move forward in this food justice movement and what has already been done in the past that we can continue to build upon.
We're actually building currently a bodega-style grocery store, and this is really a way to further increase the accessibility to fresh, healthy food in the Tenderloin community.
I, as the coordinator, decided to take on this project for the girls to learn more about how they can make impact, even if it was something as simple as watercolors.
We use art and creativity to think about solutions in the world, and Oasis for Girls is also thinking about art and creativity for solutions to things that they are thinking about.
My hope for the future around food justice is that we're able to make more food available to our community.